What are the key injuries you need to know for Sunday and Monday games for fantasy football in week 5? What are our FanDuel cash game picks, our DraftKings tournaments picks, and our PrizePicks picks of the week? It's time to break it down right here, right now, and also talk about that really awful Colts-Broncos game on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and when I'm not doing this, I'm running about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. You can check out my Week 5 picks against the spread for the Sunday and Monday games. Also have the Stardom Situm column that you can check out, the Decider. We broke down all the matchups for you, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense here earlier in the week on Wednesday's and Thursday's show. Now it's time to close the week looking at the injury report. So we're going to look at the key players we're tracking here. We'll get the official designations later on Friday afternoon, but we have a good indication of who's in and who's out here for the weekend, who are the players that you need to wait for on Sunday to make the call on. So we'll figure all that out for you here and help you make those decisions related to injuries in your lineup. So we'll look at FanDuel cash games and DraftKings tournaments. The players that I'm recommending there, look at all the positions there that you can look at some good values there across the board, depending on what type of game you're playing, cash games or GPP formats. And then we'll look at PrizePicks, our sponsor here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Here we'll break down our 5 PrizePicks picks of the week here. So we'll do all that on today's show. And then we'll also have to talk a little bit about Thursday Night Football. We'll get that out of the way early here. Colts-Broncos, ugly game, 12-9 Indianapolis comes back to beat Denver. No touchdowns there for us in fantasy football. And before we do all that, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered with more props, odds, and lines than ever before this season. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, quickly, let's cleanse ourselves here of Thursday Night Football as quickly as possible. It was highly disappointing. Well, there are 2 elements that were really great. Make that 3. Deeper leaguers might have looked at Alec Pierce, but then he was a guy that we didn't know for sure what his role was going to be behind Michael Pittman Jr. We also had Nyheim Hines go down early in the game. So big breakout game for the rookie out of Cincinnati for the Colts. Instrumental in their victory. Again, no one finds the end zone for either team, a field goal fest, as Chase McLaughlin, yes, he's the kicker for the Colts, not Rodrigo Blankenship, not Adam Vinatieri. He outduels Brandon McManus 4-3. That's the end of the game score in field goals. It looks like a baseball score, but there were no touchdowns in the game. But it was a brutal night for Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson. Matt Ryan sacked 6 times, made multiple turnovers in this game, just couldn't get anything going. The 2 field goal drives, 1 to end regulation, 1 to open up overtime, and boom, bada boom, the Colts win the game, but not a lot of production other than decent night for Michael Pittman Jr., but the start of the game, as soon as Nyheim Hines unfortunately was concussed and out of the game, they had to split the backfield a little bit, and there was some success there. They actually ran pretty well overall when you look at the final numbers for Phillip Lindsay and Deion Jackson. But credit for Matt Ryan for going away from that Patrick Surtain 2 matchup. Michael Pittman, they schemed Pierce open. He looked fantastic, and I loved him coming out of Cincinnati. Played with Desmond Ridder, of course, there in that playoff run that we saw in the college football landscape that we had for the Bearcats. So I really like Alec Pierce here, and he had that concussion there coming out of week 1, missed week 2. He got going there in the last couple of weeks, so I think he's here to stay as a fixture of the offense. He's clearly their number 2. They talked him up all in the preseason and training camp that he was the clear number 2. Now, it's been tough for him to get the run over Paris Campbell here early, but that should change. I mean, Paris Campbell just doesn't look all that great here. So Alec Pierce should be locked in with the regular snaps as the number 2 going forward here and they'll make sure to get him more involved as we come off the mini bye here for the Colts. So Alec Pearson present surprise there for you. Yeah, that game has got us tongue-tied here. And if you play the Broncos defense, we're thrilled with that. If you play the Colts defense against Russell Wilson, you were also pleased. So those are the three elements that you were fine with. Melvin Gordon was okay. He didn't have a touchdown. He had a decent scrimmage day overall. If you're in PPR, it did help if you had Melvin Gordon or Mike Boone there to help you make up for the loss of Javonte Williams. But not a lot there. Again, no touchdowns from anybody. You saw Russell Wilson. He missed a lot of touchdowns. One to Jerry Jeudy. One, we know, notably in overtime to KJ Hamler, who was visibly upset. So Wilson really should have had 2 to 3 scores here, but the Broncos' red zone offense is pitiful. Get Sutton and Jeudy more involved there. Let's have a little bit more diversity in that passing game. And we saw a little bit of Andrew Beck at tight end, but they threw to Rich Saubert, Albert O. This is just ugly here with Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. So I really like Wilson in the game. And if he executed some of those passes there, he would have easily had a 250-2 night. The Broncos win. Everyone's happy. Everyone goes home. The Broncos fans are not feeling wretched about going to the game and leaving before overtime starts. So brutal game. Again, Russell Wilson, we had one good game against a terrible Raiders defense in week 4. Otherwise, it's been a nightmare for Russ. So we can't go in that direction here in our fantasy teams unless we're super flex. We're stuck with Wilson. But at this point, you might be able to do better if you're only starting 24 quarterbacks in your league. Wilson is playing like one of the 8th worst. He's down there with Baker Mayfield, and that is not good in fantasy football. So, again, you have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Let's make it work here. Maybe this time off here in between will get something fixed. But also a major blow here. They already lost Tim Patrick early in the season, really before the season with the ACL. And now they lost Garrett Bowles to a broken leg. This is a major blow for the Broncos. The left tackle, he's been a second-team All-Pro there in 2020. He's a very good player. We saw him in his athleticism there in week 4. Unfortunately, after the Melvin Gordon fumble, he was trying to chase down Raiders cornerback Meek Robertson there. We saw him fall and stumble. It was a nice moment there where he showed a lot of hustle trying to save his team after a big turnover. Didn't quite make the tackle, but now, unfortunately for Garrett Bowles, a very likable guy. Very steadfast player, and now he's out of the lineup for the Broncos this season. So brutal there. Not a lot of good developments there that we wanted for that Broncos offense. So that's enough about Thursday Night Football. We're done. Let's move on here. And speaking of injuries, and Garrett Bowles definitely down here for a long time for the Broncos, as well as Williams. Let's look at the injury report here for week 5. Rain Dakota Prescott, also known as Dak, right thumb injury. He seemed like he could return to week 5. It's not happening. Jerry Jones put the kibosh on that. So it's going to be more week 6, and why not? They're going to save him for that Eagles matchup next week. I probably think they can beat the Rams here without Prescott, the way Cooper Rush is playing. So, yeah, save Prescott for the Eagles, get him healthy for that game, which should be a high-scoring, fun, primetime affair in week 6 against Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert going full with that ribs injury. He's getting a little bit healthier by the day. After he suffered that injury against the Chiefs, he's good to go. Great matchup against the reeling Browns defense with some injuries there. You look at Tua Tagovailoa, definitely going to miss this week and maybe well beyond that. Concussion, back, ankles, what they're listing him with. So Teddy Bridgewater starting there against the Jets. Jameis Winston not looking good for him. 2 missed practices with the back and ankle injury. There, Andy Dalton should start against the Seahawks, and we'll talk more about Dalton in that matchup. I really like it this week, even without the key target available there. Mac Jones looks like Bill Belichick's going to keep us in the dark and maybe make this a game-time decision for Mac Jones, but 2 limited practices with the ankle. We'll see what he does on Friday. Brian Hoyer has been placed on IR with his concussion, so he's not going to start. We know that. Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones, I don't think really changes any perspective of this game for me. I think Jones and Zappi are very similar. They're going to put the ball in the hands of the playmakers. Great matchup there against the Lions secondary, namely Amari Oruwariye, who's not a very good corner, but we're not sure. Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Parker. We don't know if Jacoby Myers is going to return. We'll get into that as well. So it's hard to know and hard to trust where the ball is going to go. But what I see doesn't matter who's a quarterback. A lot of Damian Harris, a lot of Ramondre Stevenson. Remember what Rashard Penny did last week against the Lions. I mean, they can get gashed on the ground as well. So Patriots should go run heavy no matter if it's Jones or Zappi. Not interested in the passing game or the quarterback despite the matchup against Detroit. Now, Looking at Daniel Jones, they have to go with him this week. 2 limited practices with his ankle injury. Tyrod Taylor's not going to play with a concussion. They don't want to sign Jake Fromm or somebody else off the street. They also looked at A.J. McCarron. Ugh. Yeah, no, we're not going there. So Daniel Jones, it looks like he's going to play versus the Packers. Don't love the matchup over the Packers. A very good pass defense. Jones is a little bit running dependent there to put up the numbers there. So not feeling with Daniel Jones. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a heavy part of the game plan, especially with Jones not having much in the way of healthy wide receivers available. They might have to start David Sills this week. That is not good here for the Giants. Now, Zach Wilson, battling through an ankle injury. He had the knee injury earlier that kept him out early in the season, but he's good to go full. Dolphins matchup, interesting. Dolphins give up a lot of points to quarterbacks, but Wilson against a blitz, I want to see that and see if we can look at Wilson more as an option going forward, but I wouldn't play him this week against Miami at home. Tom Brady, they're a little bit concerned that he had limited practice there, right finger and right shoulder injury for Brady, but with everything else going on, he's focused on football. He's good to go in the game against the Falcons there. And running back J.K. Dobbins is fine. He has a chest injury, but he's going to be the main back there for the Ravens. Justice Hill notably has a hamstring injury, and we might have a little bit of Gus Edwards in this game as well. So we'll have to watch to see if he's activated there. But Dobbins is fine. Good spot. Coming off a nice game there is a full return there for the Ravens. Dave Montgomery has a shot here to play against the Vikings. He got a limited practice in on Thursday. So we're going to watch that one. It could go either way. I think it's going to be a testing out issue there for him in Minnesota. We'll obviously monitor to see if he travels with the team here, but there's a chance Montgomery could play. I think it would be more of a committee approach with Montgomery and Herbert in that game, and that would definitely take a lot of shine off Herbert's value in that one should Montgomery play for the Bears. DeAndre Swift is not going to play. They have a bye week. The Lions do in week 6. They're not going to rush him out there. So more Jamal Williams and Craig Reynolds. Alvin Kamara, we have to watch. We're going to watch it all the way through, right, until we know at the inactive time there on Sunday afternoon if he's going to go. Rib injury. He should go. They got rid of Latavius Murray, who ended up with the Broncos, so that is an indication that Kamara's fine. Breece Hall came up with a knee injury here, but he should be good to go here. He is starting to take the feature role as expected in the Jets offense. You got Boston Scott, rib injury. We'll see if he returns. If not, it would help Miles Sanders have a big role against the Cardinals. Tyrion Davis-Price down for the 49ers. A lot more the red-hot Jeff Wilson Jr. against the Panthers in Carolina. Rashad Penny here, he's a guy that, look, he was spectacular last week. Tougher matchup this week, but he'll play with the shoulder injury. Not quite Ken Walker time there. By the way, Ken Walker added with a shoulder injury as well to the practice report there on Thursday. And wide receiver Marquise Hollywood Brown should be good to go with the foot injury. Got limited practice. He's good there for that Eagles matchup. AJ Green also could return here with a knee injury. We also have Rondale Moore on track to return here. So all good stuff here for the Cardinals. Try to get better offensively. They'll get DeAndre Hopkins back after 6 games here pretty soon. Rashad Bateman probably not going to play with the foot injury. We've been planning for that all week. Gabe Davis, initially I was worried about the ankle. I wanted to see full practice. He's got 2 in there. And we got Isaiah McKenzie getting a little practice in with a concussion, but still very shaky. I think he'd go either way for clearance for McKenzie this week. Jameson Crowder's not going to play. Jake Kumaro also not healthy. They're both an ankle injury. So really could help Gabe Davis in a great matchup against that Steelers secondary that's also got some injury issues this week. Laviska Shenault, 2 missed practices with the hamstring, not going to be out there for the Panthers. T. Higgins will be okay with his ankle injury for the Bengals. CeeDee Lamb scared some people by popping up with a growing issue without a practice there on Thursday, but he's going to play against the Rams. He said he was fine after the practice. Noah Brown is good to go as well with a neck injury. So full complement of receivers, Lamb, Brown, and Michael Gallup. Gallup not even listed there with the knee anymore. Amon-Ra St. Brown, just like DeAndre Swift, going to miss another game with an ankle injury. Set to do that as they're resting him ahead of the bye week. DJ Chark could return. He's got limited practice here. Josh Reynolds will play. Quintus Cephas, however, looks like he's going to be out. So you could be seeing a lot of Chark and Reynolds in this game, and we'll watch Chark to see if we don't get a late scratch with him. Al Lazard, good to go with his ankle for the Packers against Giants in London, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. Houston Texans, Chris Morris might miss the game. That could help the targets there for Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins in garbage time against the Jaguars. Speaking of the Jaguars, Zay Jones is likely to return here with his ankle injury he missed last week against the Eagles. Juju Smith-Schuster, quad injury. Marcus Valdez-Scantling, abdomen. Miko Hardman, heel, and Sky Moore, ankle. They all went full, so they're all fine. They're going to play. We'll see. I think this could be more of a Sky Moore situation. We'll watch that develop here against the Raiders. Hunter Renfrow, speaking of the Raiders, Renfrow should be good to go in return. That's a big addition here for Derek Carr and the value. So like it. Renfrow is definitely a play as a wide receiver 3 in that matchup in the slot this week. The Jerry Sneed can be a little bit tough, but Renfrow is going to get the volume there from Carr, in his first game back. Keenan Allen doesn't look good to play again with the hamstring injury. Josh Palmer, limited, so it could be another Mike Williams week against Cleveland with struggling Denzel Ward. You have Tyreek Hill, has a quad injury. He popped up as limited, but he's going to go play against the Jets. Jalen Waddle, also limited with a growing injury, but both are going to play. Cedric Wilson Jr., ribs and toe injury. He's going to play behind them, but he doesn't get enough targets to consider. Yeah, Jacoby Myers with a knee injury. He should be better this week, but again, when it's limited for the Patriots, it could easily be missing the game. So I would not hold my breath for Myers. Michael Thomas set to miss another game with a foot injury. Here, Jarvis Landry is going to play again through the ankle injury. Now, the Giants' wide receiver core is a mess. You're not going to have Kenny Golladay this week with a knee injury, not like we would notice anyway because he hasn't done anything. Richie James also been limited in practice with an ankle injury. We'll see if he can go. Wan'Dale Robinson, Kadarius Toney. We'll see about them. Toney had the hamstring issue. So does other players that we've seen on this team for a long time. So Toney's still lingering there. Wan'Dale Robinson, we'll see. They need to get Wan'Dale Robinson. He's the only guy that I'm even remotely interested in this Giants passing core going forward. All right, we're looking at the 49ers. Juwan Jennings should be fine. So should Danny Gray for the Panthers. He's not going to play either of those guys. Chris Godwin, hamstring. He looks good to go. Great matchup in the slot against the Falcons. Julio Jones, Russell Gage, Rashad Perriman, they're all going to play with various knee and hamstring injuries there. So Tom Brady will have his full weaponry. They're on display in that matchup against Atlanta. Treylon Burks is going to miss at least one game, probably multiple weeks here with a turf toe. So Robert Woods is in a great spot to produce against that Commanders secondary. The Commanders will be down also their rookie first rounder, Jahan Dotson, has a hamstring injury. So you're going to see a lot of Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin in a very good matchup against the Titans secondary. So Robert Woods and Samuel and McLaurin in a very good spot to produce this week. Kyle Pitts, we go to him at tight end. Really tough here. 2 hamstring injury-related missed practices. I don't see Pitts suiting up here, and he's been disappointing, but the Bucs can give up numbers to the tight end, but Pitts doesn't look good here for him, and you can see a little bit more Parker Hesse there in that matchup against Tampa. Dawson Knox, 2 missed practices. A little concerning with the foot and hamstring injury. We'll see if he gets limited session to go there, but it's hard to trust him there, even though the Steelers matchup is pretty good this week. The Bengals, Hayden Hurst is going to go with his growing injury. David Njoku is fine with his knee for the Browns against the Chargers. You have Dalton Schultz, so hopefully he'll get involved a little bit more. Again, I don't feel that he's connecting as well with Cooper Rush as he did with Dak Prescott. So if you have better alternatives to Schultz, go there. TJ Hawkinson, hip injury, is going to play through it after a smash week against the Seahawks last week. Decent matchup against the Patriots this week. The Brevin Jordan injury lingers in Houston with the ankle. He's not going to play. Darren Waller is going to play through a shoulder injury for the Chiefs. Foster Moreau behind him, however, could miss the game. So that could mean a few more targets there for Waller at that position. You have Donald Parham Jr. here, then had a full practice there. He'll be available, but Gerald Everett limited with the hamstring. So we'll see how that plays out. Jonnu Smith, we talked about Hunter Henry. I still think they'll get him a little bit more involved, but Jonnu with an ankle, we'll see if he can play with that being limited for the Patriots. Taysom Hill, a little bit of a deep sleeper as well this week. I like him with the ribs injury, maybe being a bigger part of the running game. He did take some first-team quarterback snaps with James Winston down with Andy Dalton. So I think you'll see a little bit more of the old Wildcat Hill packages here this week. Ross Dwelly and Tyler Kroft are going to be one available there. Dwelly behind George Kittle there. So Dwelly is cutting into Kittle's work a little bit, but the Panthers down Jeremy Chin. They're hurting at safety overall with Xavier Woods, and then their linebacker corps are also beat up. So this could be a good George Kittle week. So something to watch out there. And Cameron Bray probably going to miss the game with a concussion for the Bucs against the Falcons. There are actually some kicker injuries this week. Kicker injuries, kicker alert. Do not play Matt Prater or Jake Elliott this week. Same game. Cardinals, Eagles, they're going to be out. Matt Amendola, remember him? He just filled in for Harrison Butker. He's going to have to fill in for Prater here, it looks like, for the Cardinals. And Cameron Dicker should be doing the kicking on the other side for the Eagles with Jake Elliott out. here. So the Eagles have been so good in the red zone that Elliott hasn't scored a lot, so you're probably not going there. Now we'll see about Harrison Butker himself. Could miss the game here against the Raiders. He's got a left ankle injury. Dustin Hopkins dealing with the right quad, but he should be good to go if you need him against the Browns. Austin Seibert attached to that big Lions offense should go against the Patriots. Evan McPherson will go with a groin injury. So kicker injuries come up this week that we do need to be aware of. So more kickers than usual getting hurt in 2022. Some other things of note, looks like the Lions offensive line getting a little bit healthier. The Packers are starting to look good up front. The Rams, however, more injury issues for them. So Brian Allen being joined by Coleman Shelton and David Edwards. They're banged up. So just keep in mind that line struggles here. Another 49ers key left tackles down. Colton McKivitz, Trent Williams replacement is hurting. So maybe a little affecting there, but very good system there to help them. On the defensive side, watch for the Browns. We'll see if Myles Garrett can return. That would change the game a little to get against the Chargers. Defensively, not a lot of key ones to look at. I would say the Packers have a couple, but you really can't trust Jair Alexander and Adrian Amos. Both could go in that game. The Dolphins have Xavier Howard banged up, so we'll see if that materializes where he misses that game. That would help the Jets wide receivers for sure, namely Garrett Wilson, the rookie. So not a lot there to look at that are going to affect fantasy football elsewhere. But there's your report here on Locked On Fantasy Football, your injury report here ahead of week number 5's Sunday and Monday games. All right, here's a sports analogy for you. When it comes to burglars, your home is like the end zone. You need the absolute strongest defense you can muster. That's why I use and trust Simple Safe Home Security. It's Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's the cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know your home is safe. Share with you that it's been great to have Simply Safe. I just feel like everything is protected and secure, better than I could have ever imagined there. So advanced technology there. We can control the system there from my phone with my app there, or you can watch the crystal clear HD live stream of the security camera. So it's beautiful there to make sure that we're safe and feel good about it. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simply Safe's agent call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't reach. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Our monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response at Simply Safe. That's a technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnNFL. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month. Visit simplysafe.com, Locked On NFL to learn more. Again, your first month free. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, it is time to continue the show here in the moment, and we'll break down some FanDuel and DraftKings recommendations here based on price points and return on investment here, whether we're playing cash games or tournaments. We'll look at the DraftKings for the GPP. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local expert give you the inside scoop on 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's look at our FanDuel and DraftKings picks here. Then we'll get into our PrizePicks picks to close the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football and the week here on a Friday. All right, at quarterback, I'm going with the GOAT, Tom Brady on FanDuel. 7,800, I like the price. I think he's going to go off big time. He's pretty safe here against that Falcons defense, so love it at home. All his receivers look healthy here. Mike Evans and Don Down. This is a passing team first. Falcons have been better against the run than expected here. So Brady lights up the Falcons. Let's go for that money in the bank there. At 7,800, love that price. Now, in tournaments, Andy Dalton has a lot of appeal. So assuming Jameis Winston's out, he gets the Seahawks. And then we're not chasing what Jared Goff did last week. But Dalton's in a good position to give you a good return on investment there for, I think, 250 and 2. I think Chris Olave can be a big part of what they do. Kamara out of the backfield. You may see Taysom Hill in the receiving game a little bit more. You got Marcus Callaway and some other guys who can pick up the slack, including Traquan Smith. So there are enough weapons there if Michael Thomas misses with between Landry and Olave and others to get those couple scores that you need to really pay off there. And the Seahawks offense could provide some push here, so the Saints have to offer some resistance here through the air. So will not surprise me at all. So Andy Dalton at 5,200, the price is really good there, tournament to where he might be off the radar for a lot of leagues. All right, let's turn our attention to running backs for FanDuel for the cash games. Austin Eckler coming off that big game against the Texans last week. It's another good matchup against the Browns. We're going to watch that. I mean, the Browns got gashed for 202 yards rushing, so that off or defensive line still banged up. I think the Chargers offensive line still has a big advantage here. Eckler in the passing game, so I like that. You're going to pay up a little bit, but you're going to get the return there from Eckler at 9,000. And Damian Harris, I want to go with one of the Patriots backs for sure in DFS as much as possible. They can run all over the lines. I think that's going to be the game plan at 5,400 there that you look at, or 7,200, I should say, for Damian Harris is a very good price there for him on DraftKings. Now, I was getting a little ahead of myself because I was looking at, DraftKings there with the prices. So Eckler and Harris are the FanDuel cash game picks. I do like Ramondre Stevenson in tournament picks because he's the second back, so to speak, but he has the more explosive nature there to blow up here. So 5,500. So he's the one that's cheap there on DraftKings. And you look at the Breece Hall as well. So battling through that knee issue, but he's the big volume back of this side here. Hall could go off against the Dolphins for sure. I think people might be off Breece Hall because they're looking at this matchup and say, hey, the Dolphins are not bad against the run, but I look at the volume for Breece Hall and the potential in the passing game to really bring in returns there. And I think they'll lean on him a lot because Zach Wilson can wake him up a little bit, and he did definitely do that last week against the Steelers. So Eckler and Harris, 9,000 and 7,200 on FanDuel, 5,500, 5,400 for Ramondre Stevenson and Breece Hall, two young, exciting backs from the AFC East. All right, then we'll turn to our wide receiver choices here. I do, in the main slate, like Tyreek Hill for 8,400 on FanDuel. I think he's going to be fine playing through his injury this week. It's a quad, but again, it's a Teddy Bridgewater game, so he's going to trust Tyreek Hill a lot. So 8,400, like him in the lineup with Bridgewater. Christian Kirk should get back on track. The Texans are pretty awful all over the field here. So I look at Christian Kirk, maybe seeing some Derek Stingley Jr., the rookie inside here. So 7,500, like him, for easy money. And then Robert Woods, 5,900 for Robert Woods. He's going to get good volume there against that Commander secondary. He's the man here without Treylon Burks. So they could work on other guys, but Nick Westbrook-Ikine has been kind of disappearing, and Kyle Phillips hasn't done much in week one. He had the injuries as well. So Robert Woods in a really good spot at 5,900 as a cheap option. You look at on DraftKings for tournaments, I love Mike Evans because he can put up multiple touchdowns, and he's had that history against the Falcons, and he did that last week to the Chiefs. Terry McLaurin, I love that matchup against the Titans secondary this week, so 6,200 for him. I think McLaurin, people are off him a little bit because of not having the touchdowns, but I think you get that maybe this week here for McLaurin on a big play with Jahan Dotson out here for the Commanders. And then George Pickens, this guy, I want to connect with him as much as possible. It's a tough matchup for sure against the Bills secondary, but a lot of the attention is going to go to Deontay Johnson. Chase Claypool's in the game. Pat Freiermuth has a tough matchup. Najee Harris on the backfield. So if I'm going for a dart throw late in the game and garbage time, you're definitely looking at George Pickens coming through for his fellow rookie at quarterback, Kenny Pickett. All right, at tight end, we're circling one guy now. We have to. Here's why. Travis Kelce and Darren Waller are playing each other primetime Monday night. Mark Andrews playing in primetime on Sunday night against the Bengals. So you're taking away three of your top options. Kyle Pitts is hurt. So if you were going to consider Kyle Pitts for a bounce-back game, you can't really force him in there if the hamstring is not cooperating. So there's one matchup that makes sense, one player that makes sense. It's Dallas Goedert, potentially the TJ Hawkinson of week 5. I don't think he can have the same type of yardage because you're going to have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith also go off. But Jalen Hurts can shred this secondary and back end for the Cardinals. So Dallas Goedert at 6,100. He's been pretty solid so far. This is a game that we know he has potential for multiple touchdowns. We've seen it before with Hurts. He can explode to that level. And Zach Ertz is going to be the other side. This is an underrated factor as well. Ertz kind of was the mentor, the guy that was there before Goddard, before Ertz was traded to the Cardinals. So a little emotional day. Goddard will be fired up here for the Cardinals game on the other side. So Dallas Goedert, there's a lot of factors there I like, but 6,100, 4,700 for Dallas Goedert. He's your tight end pick for either FanDuel, cash games, or DraftKings tournaments. Now, at defense, it looked pretty clear to me. I want to steal the Patriots at 3,600 on FanDuel. I think they'll do a good number there on Jared Goff. So get cheap, get reasonable there to help you load up your roster at other positions. And the Cowboys, well underpriced, maybe looking at the Rams and that offense, the potent offense on the board. But we know the Rams have been a sieve, giving up a lot of points to defenses of late. We know the Cowboys pass rush can really take it to the Rams. So I do like that price for the Cowboys at 2,500 DraftKings. So Patriots 3,600 FanDuel, Cowboys good value there on DraftKings. So we'll close the show looking at our PrizePicks 5 picks of the week, and excited to share those with you here for Week 5. There, Sunday and Monday games. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting information of the season. It's reliable there. If you're looking for the up-to-the-minute NFL news that you need, you can find all the latest developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis of every game you can find. Always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. That includes NFL and college football. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use a mobile device to learn more. That's about BetOnline. Check them out for sure. It is the way to get in on the action there. So odds, news, and scores you're going to get at BetOnline. They're going to take care of you there. And check it out. Head to betonline.net. Use a mobile device right now. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it is time here to continue and close the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We're going to unveil our 5 prize picks of the week. Now, we have been going overs, and we've had decent success. We haven't crushed it necessarily, but we're going to try to do it this week. And we've been playing the projected point totals above that. So we're going to the prize picks projections, and we're seeing the ones that we want to feel comfortable about getting over that, because it's a little bit easier to project than the under. The under can be pretty tough, as we've seen here with those things. So we're going to go for guys that are going to exceed their projections that are available only at prize picks here. Joe Burrow is our first option here, and we can use players that are in prime time here. 270.5 is his passing yardage projected thing there on PrizePicks. So I think he can go over that. I mean, they're going to blitz him quite a bit. The Ravens are. Joe Burrow destroyed this team twice last season. I don't see the Ravens running game or the Bengals running game being a big part of what they do this week. So 270.5, I think he goes over that pretty comfortably this week against Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens, at least the game script is going to get him there if the Ravens are able to build a big lead and go back and forth. So 270.5, like that, to exceed that for Joe Burrow. All right. I also like James Robinson, 62.5 rushing yards. I think he'll be fine for a lot more. I think this is at least an 85 to 90 yard rushing game for him. The Texans' run defense is the worst in the NFL. So love that. James Robinson again to get the rock. They also did not give him the ball enough last week, and it really took them out of the game flow against the Eagles. So I think they'll overcorrect that as well to make sure he gets the carry so he can go above that 62.5 rushing yardage. Now, I also love A.J. Brown. We talked about Dallas Goedert. I think it's a Brown and Goedert type game. They'll both go off here. Devonta Smith should also be involved. But look at 75.5 for A.J. Brown receiving yards. I think he hits with more of that this week. I think he has a 100-yard game easily and a good shot at a touchdown, maybe 2 here against the Cardinals' weak secondary. Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce are my last 2 picks here. Think about this game. I think the Chiefs-Raiders game could very much play out like the Chiefs-Buccaneers game, where the Chiefs build a big lead, use their key targets here. And really, I don't think the Raiders can cover Travis Kelce. They actually have a good slot receiver, Nate Hobbs. And their corners have played a little bit better than expected, but inside, their coverage against tight ends is still pretty awful here. So Travis Kelce, 70.5 is a very good number for Kelce to get to this week for sure. So I feel it at least the 80 receiving yards there for Travis Kelce this week. And Devontae Adams, he's at 78.5 here on PrizePicks. And yeah, I'm also looking at the volume that Adams is going to get. I think Hunter Renfrow returning actually helps Adams because it deflects the attention a little bit away and creates a little bit more favorable matchups for him. Darren Waller a little bit banged up. So Devontae Adams is going to be force-fed the ball. I think he gets up to 14 targets in this game. I think you're looking at 10 to 14 targets here for Devontae Adams. He can get that return. He's going to average more than 6-7 yards a catch to get that number. So do like it there with Devontae Adams. So Joe Burrow, more than 275 passing yards. James Robinson, more than 62.5 rushing yards. A.J. Brown exceeds 75.5 receiving yards. Same thing with Devontae Adams for 78.5. And then Travis Kelce with a number even lower at 70.5. So those are your PrizePicks picks of the week here on Locked On Fantasy Football to add to our injury and full DFS report here for you on a Friday. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Now, our next episode, we'll react to all the action that happened Sunday and Monday there, and we'll break that down to you so we can turn the page to week 6. We'll do that on Monday for you on Locked On Fantasy Football. Now, make your second listen to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Also, make sure you check out the NFL key predictions every Friday in Locked On NFL. Locked On's local expert give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games in the NFL weekend, including Sunday, Monday Night Football. Betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline, our title sponsor of this episode. Follow NFL key predictions every Friday. Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. That's also where you'll find Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks again for listening to our show. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this is Vinnie Iyer. Good luck in all your fantasy football seasonal leagues and DFS contests this week. We'll catch you Monday with reactions to what happened.